You could take that energy, that nervous energy, and you can reframe it by saying, you know what, I'm nervous about speaking today on the podcast, but I'm excited to share my knowledge. And I kept hearing that story over and over again. I said, wait a second. In all those moments, I haven't heard that story of you going through that moment where you were finally accepted or you accepted yourself. And I had him walk me through what happened. There was silence. He started telling me the story, and we both got very emotional.
Hi, I'm Yegi. I'm an entrepreneur and success coach who wants it all. Family, luxury, career, and the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I created the Yegi Project to document my journey and inspire others to do the same. My mission is to change the world by influencing and leading others to do what they love and live fulfilled lives.
Hello. Welcome back to the Yegi Project. Today's honored guest is Shelley Goldstein, a leadership communications coach known as the Coach Whisperer. She transforms untamed potential into mastery. She has coached over 1,000 C-suite executives across technology, finance, legal, and manufacturing sectors through one-on-one and group workshops. I am excited to pick her brain and get to know more about leadership skills. So let's talk to Shelly. Please introduce yourself. Tell us, who are you in your own words and what do you do?
Yegi, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and share some ideas with your audience. Who am I? I guess you could say I'm in the breakthrough business, right? I learned you can't empower people if you're just saying the words.
Okay.
And through that journey of who I am and how I can share my ideas with people, I really had to sit and think about, what have I done? What has made a difference to me? What are things that I am so passionate about? And convey that passion with others. That's how they're able to connect with me, and we can start a really truthful conversation.
Yes, and that's a whole other skill. And I'm curious to know, in your opinion, what do most leaders make in their communication mistakes when they want to convey something, but they just don't know how to get across to their audience? What's the biggest mistake?
They just say, here's what I am. I'm a CEO. I'm an entrepreneur. I run a business that sells beauty products. That doesn't tell us anything. Or it puts you in a category with lots of other people that do that. So how do I stand out as an individual? How is Shelley a unique coach that could actually help you learn how to connect with those words? How can I empower you to be a better speaker, not by just iterating those words? So it's really sharing a personal moment, a touching story, something that really hit your heartstrings that got you to where you are today. And many of them just fall back into those generic words.
I see. So it is more like of how you say it compared to what you're saying.
It's how you're connecting with your own journey, right?
I see.
I've built a business. You've built a business. What were those stories like? What were the mistakes like? I've made a mistake, but I coached a client and I misdirected them on what they wanted. I was trying so hard to achieve a goal. They really just needed to be heard, and understanding that piece. And
why is that so important?
Because otherwise I'm just running a system. When someone gets in my coaching chair, I'm just going through a system that anybody could pick up, download online, buy my book, run it through. Okay, everybody has it. Ride a bike, right? Get up there and do the technical skills. But how am I going to transform you to really be your unique you that nobody else is? What's your story? What's your mistakes? What are your successes? How did you fall off that bike and get back on and recover? Those are the moments that are going to make the difference.
Beautiful. Now, for anybody that wants to know, how did you get started in your line of work? Can you take us back, share your story with us?
It's a little embarrassing, but I was actually thrust into the speaking spotlight. I had been a marketing manager for quite some time, and I went to a conference with the owner of the company, and the person who was supposed to speak was detained last minute. And so, because I was familiar with the product and what we were really presenting there, my boss said, "Hey, Shelly, you get out there and present." I had no notes. I didn't write any script. I wasn't prepared other than what I had been doing the last 6 months. So I knew something, but really, I have to get out there and speak?
How did that feel?
Terrible, nerve wracking. My mind went blank. I was shaking so much. I'm sure everybody saw my knees just slamming together. And what was so interesting about that moment, Yegi, was I connected with a woman in the audience, and she was looking at me like eager to hear what I had to say. And I
Wow.
just started speaking to her. And I looked at others, and they were receptive to what I was saying. And I realized it wasn't the thoughts I was putting, the judgment in my own brain. It was really what I had to offer that other people wanted to hear.
Wow. And did that moment spark any like light bulb moments for you to be like, hey, this is what I need to be doing. I'm good at it naturally. Or what happened next?
Well, not quite that, but I did know I needed to take this journey to say what happened and how can I replicate, because it felt really, really, really good. I mean, people were just ecstatic. And the reception felt so good. So I realized I had to believe it wasn't what was happening internally, it was what was happening around me. And so my journey then was to go through training and communications to figure out how can I do it differently? How can I get that to happen again? And that's when I got to realize that there were so many systems and coaching programs available, but they were very tactical driven. It was a list of things to do and do more of this and don't do more of that. And I was so focused on what not to do, I wasn't feeling that moment of connection. And so my own journey into discovering that and playing around with different ideas is really how I got there. And I said, that was the light bulb moment. How can I teach others? Because what a great thing to do. What a great feeling.
Wow, wow, wow. Okay. So my next question to you is for leaders who are genuinely great leaders, but
Yeah.
in public settings for public speaking, they freeze or their communication skills just disappear. What advice do you have for those leaders that want to have a bigger voice and affect more people?
You can't just memorize a script and you can't just speak the words. You really have to embody them. And by that is getting very present. Literally, you can forget everything anybody has ever told you and focus on what your journey was. So, in that moment that I was on that stage making that presentation, when I took a deep breath and I just got very present with the person before me, I realized they want to hear what I know, not some great fancy speech of great words. I'm not a professional speaker in that time, and I'm certainly wasn't any kind of world leader or, giving a dissertation as a professor. I was speaking human to human, and that's my advice. Forget all the tactics and get human. Just share your words, your story as you have lived it, as you know it. Because that's what we want, genuine human you.
So how do you ignore the nerves or how do you get over that public speaking fear in order to get to that human level? Because a lot of people can connect one-on-one, but when it's
Yeah.
in a group setting and there's so many eyes on you, they freeze or they just, the pressure is too high of the stakes are too high to mess up and they forget the human to human connection. What advice do you have for those speakers?
Well, there's good news and bad news. I'll give you the bad news first. Those nerves never go away. Never. I still get nervous when I have to go on, presentation mode. It's there. But here's the good news. You could take that energy, that nervous energy, and you can reframe it by saying, you know what, I'm nervous about speaking today on the podcast, but I'm excited to share my knowledge. And that reframing of I'm nervous to I'm excited, you're relabeling the energy source in your body. And once you say excited, look, I can't, you naturally smile with that
Yes,
word.
you redirect the energy in a positive way.
Exactly right. And then it just shifts from there and you're just repurposing that energy because you need that energy to motivate. You just don't want it to take you down.
Exactly. Now, can you share a story about a leader that you coached that transformed after the sessions in their communication style or skills?
Absolutely. I was just working with a client the other day, and they were preparing for interviews, leveling up to a higher position. And the person kept telling me that they have this vision, this dream for this new company. They weren't seeking the company found them, but they realized they wanted to just drastically change the world based on their own personal preference of being a gay person and coming out. And I kept hearing that story over and over again. And as a leader, when that person was telling me, just, well, I've done this and I've helped sales here and I've built numbers there and I helped teams and got people motivated, I said, wait a second. In all those moments, I haven't heard that story of you going through that moment where you were finally accepted or you accepted yourself. And I had him walk me through what happened. When did that happen? How did it happen? There was silence. He
Mm.
started telling me the story and we both got very emotional. And then I said, okay, now tell me what you love about this opportunity for this new company. And he came from that point of view, that young person who needed to express himself fully and honestly. That transformation, he said to me at the end of the session, wow, that was a breakthrough moment. I get it.
Mm.
I don't sound like anybody else. That's my dream I just shared.
Wow. And sometimes you really need someone else to point that out because you keep telling yourself the same story and you're used to hearing it. So it sounds right to you, but a different person's perspective really helps sell it. Not even sell it, but really helps point out what's working and what's not working.
Exactly right. And that's such a default of many of us, Yegi. You're 100% right. We keep doing the same thing over and over again, and we wonder why the results don't shift. And there's this fear based that I can't be fully expressed in the business world. But the truth is, when you think of all the great leaders and all the people that have moved mountains and helped communities and built great things in our civilization, it all came from a deep, passionate, emotional place. And that's what we all connect with. And you're doing a
Mm.
disservice to yourself and others mostly if you're not sharing that honest moment.
So I feel like a lot of people have a fear of being not taken seriously or losing their authority or credibility if they're
Mm.
going to be super authentic and sharing everything, right? Not necessarily everything, but everything that genuinely they went through or that matters. I feel like there's a hidden fear that some of us don't admit and that holds us back. How can somebody stay in the role of having the authority, credibility, but still be authentic and vulnerable as a leader?
Honesty is so important, but you need to be honest with yourself first. Go through these stories, these moments, and you really also have to be discriminatory within yourself to say, what is this audience ready to hear these things? And that's really the bellwether, right? So if you're, say, in the weight loss business and you've gone through a tremendous transformation in weight loss yourself, that audience is probably going to want to hear your story of how you went from A to B. That audience is right. And you need to be sure that they could hear that. I mean, think of every TED Talk. It's all about somebody overcoming some outrageous obstacle, unfortunate situation, grave, horrible situations, and they persevere. And those audiences who tune in are prepared to hear that. You, as the speaker, really need to understand this is the person I'm speaking to or the people. So they're ready to hear that. But be brave in saying, this is also who I am. And I lived through this and it was real. And chances are a lot of other people out there have a similar story like yours and are looking for that hope and that perseverance to get through their troubles.
Great, great advice. Thank you so much. Now, before we ask you more specific questions to your expertise, I would love to get to know you a little bit better and for our audience as well. Random question. I love asking my guests, if you had a magic wand, what would you change? First thing that comes to mind. And of course, we want world peace and all those things, but it could be anything. It could be anything. What's the first thing you would change?
If I was to really think about something I could change, I do think of that often. I wish I had this kind of confidence in speaking much earlier in my life. It is something that's demanded of all of us. It's expected of us on every job, in our personal lives, whether we're dealing with family or friends. And yet there's no official training within our school systems or even on board
Mm.
jobs to get there. And if I had had these skills earlier in my career, in my 20s, I can only imagine where I'd be today.
Now, do you think speaking and communication is an essential skill in order to be a leader or successful in today's world?
It is the only skill you're going to need. Because if you can't
Wow.
communicate your vision, if you can't communicate your thoughts, bad, good, or indifferent, if you can't express what it is that needs to happen that's happening in your head, then how will anybody else connect with it, understand it, and be able to champion your ideas forward?
So that just triggered a thought. In today's generation, I mean, the teenagers, I mean, even college students, we are not as communicative in person. A lot of things are happening behind the scenes. Social
Mhm.
media, people are using even now AI tools like ChatGPT to figure out what to say. What is your advice to find that balance between the current technology and the skill of communication for parents who want to try to, guide their children in the right direction?
It's really challenging. And I think this is because we're living in these times, we're kind of figuring it all out. I believe AI is a fantastic tool. It's a co-pilot thing. I mean, I can use it myself as a business owner to do research, to help with systems and routines and things I need on a daily basis. Correct grammar, if you will. Although it's not a perfect thing, and it certainly doesn't understand human emotion. It can talk about things that it reads on, in the internet, but it cannot feel like
Mm,
humans feel. And it certainly won't have your stories and your personal experiences. And what I'm going to suggest young people do is even when they're on the phone scrolling, think of how you feel when you're looking at some of these things. Think of your experience while you're taking in that information. How does it make you feel? And when you can put an emotional word to that, sit in that emotion and then think of how you can grow with that. Like, did that make me feel good? Great. Maybe when I meet with my friends, I can replicate that good feeling. Or I could think about other times with friends I've had good feelings or bad feelings. So you start to understand what is different from one piece of content versus another, or one experience one on one with friends versus another experience with family. These are all experiences, and you have that emotional sort of feedback loop within yourself. So we really need to connect and just ask yourself, how do I feel about what I'm experiencing right now?
I see. Now, going back to the question of what you would change. So let's say hypothetically you are in your 20s and you have your current speaking communication skills. What would you do differently today? I mean, if you were 20 today, what would you do? What actions would you take with your current skill set?
I would absolutely, absolutely speak up more. I'd raise my hand more. I would volunteer to lead groups. I would not be afraid to present ideas where I've held back. Sitting in a room, not feeling like I had permission at the table, I would override that idea because I was invited to the table. And I would change the whole idea and say, no, I was invited. I'm here. Say what you need to say. Nobody might agree with me, but at least say it.
I love that. And everybody that's listening and is in that position, I think it's a great reminder to work on our communication or speaking skills in order to avoid feeling and having regret for not speaking up down the line.
Yeah, because what happened is I've sat there in silence and watched others get promoted where I didn't. I've noticed others
Mm,
get credit for the projects where I didn't. I noticed others moving ahead, and they weren't necessarily more or less talented than I was, or better or worse at the job. It was the fact that they spoke up, and that's
mm.
the difference.
So for somebody who's afraid to speak up, I guess it's also like a down hidden this fear of rejection or not feeling good enough. What advice do you have for those listeners today if they feel like they want to speak up, but they just don't know how or where to start?
One of the key things I would go back to is a TED Talk. There are many out there, and you can watch many of them. And think about the ones you connect with, even if it's a bad, unfortunate situation. I could talk about an instance where I was asked to help promote a webinar on finding a job. And I couldn't get this 30-second video out. I kept recording it. I wrote it. It was perfectly rehearsed. And I was so frustrated after an hour doing a 30-second take. I finally just said, Shelly, you're getting one more take. Just say something. And I talked about the time I got laid off. One of the most humiliating times in my life, right? Like I'm great at what I do. How could I get laid off? And when I shared that story, a weight came off my shoulders and I felt like I just crossed over into like euphoria. And people that heard that spot, I cut it, I sent it in, and people that responded to it, oh my gosh, I felt the same way. I got laid off too. Tell me your experience. How can you share it? All of a sudden, by connecting and not being afraid to share my own experiences, good or bad, I was helping others. And that moment became more important than my own judgment on myself.
I see. That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Now, 3 top lessons that you've learned in life or in business throughout the years.
Only 3. Oh my gosh.
Top 3.
Well, number 1 I could say is priorities. As a young person starting out in my career, I tried to do everything on the list and do it really, really well. And I was exhausted by the end of the day. And a very kind mentor boss of mine said, Shelly, you've got to just pick 3 things and get it done. No one's going to know if this is missing or one little detail is off. Stick with the priorities. So that was one lesson. Number 2 was stay clear on my focus. And this actually just happened to me recently. I was putting together a workshop series and people started giving me feedback. Well, I wish it was this day, or it was positioned that way, or it was an hour instead of 6 sessions and blah, blah, blah. And I started listening to people, but not like open to the ideas. But I got so involved in what they had to say that I ended up getting off track of my goal and my vision. And I ended up revamping the entire program. And it didn't quite work out as well as it could because it wasn't what I knew was going to work. So the moral there is stay on the goal and the mission. It's okay to get information, but don't get so side railed, you know?
Yes, I'm very guilty of doing that. I get too excited and sidetracked and things look fun and shiny and I go all over the place. I'm like, hold on, focus. This is why you can't get done what you need to get done, is because you're trying to do 100 things at the same time.
Exactly right. I mean, it happens.
Now, for a leader, what can they start or stop doing in order to improve their communication skills immediately?
Stop apologizing every time you make a mistake with a word, or, the slide doesn't turn over, or you have a mute button on accidentally. If you haven't really hurt anybody, don't apologize. This is part of life. Get to what the message is supposed to be and move on, or make light of it, right? And sometimes we put so much emphasis on apologizing as if we're leaning towards perfection. It's not real. Perfect doesn't exist for humans. And people will connect with you better when they know you're speaking to them human to human. So let some of those things go.
Yes, I feel like people won't even notice or don't even care unless you do put that emphasis on the mistake or the wrong word or whatever you used at the moment.
Exactly. And, I've coached people on how to pitch their stories and pitch themselves for a job. And the truth is, people are going to hire you or buy what you have to offer because they trust you, not because of a word you said or didn't say, or the pretty little slide deck, or the features and benefits. They want to say, I can trust you. I believe in you. I connect with you. And that's the relationship piece that you're going for. Everything else is just that, fancy words and pretty slide decks.
Now, thank you again. But who should seek your help in coaching? Who's your customer?
I work with entrepreneurs, senior level executives, and vice presidents, people that are very high level, very good at what they do, smart and powerful, but have sort of that disconnect between expressing their vision and getting all the people around them to champion it. Or they don't feel they can connect with their audiences and be able to motivate people in a way that they are motivated themselves.
Well, that's very well put. I love that. Now, as our final words, can you tell our listeners what is your story? Take us back to your story of how you fully got into being a coach and making this your full-time passion and career.
Well, it really is interesting, and I'm glad you asked me to reflect on that because I don't believe, or let's put it this way, what's really helped me serve others is I don't ask them to do anything that I haven't gone through myself. So remembering that journey of having those knees knocking at that conference and then going through Toastmasters and different speaking courses and feeling all those emotions of shame, humility, I didn't get it right, and constantly putting myself out there to speak and trying different things was really the best way I was able to get to a place where I started going, you know what? Some of those things don't matter because other people are going through it too. And when I started sharing my honest stories and journeys with others and helping them get to that place of confidence and belief and motivation, like reflect on why you love what you do. Don't tell me what you do. Why do you love to do what you do? That transformation of others is really what motivated me to see the fact when my client that I talked about earlier said, that was a breakthrough moment. To hear that, or somebody say, you've changed my life, what more can I ask for? It was so, that's a big responsibility and a
Yeah.
level of trust. But I really believe, as I've said, because I'm sharing what I've gone through and aren't asking my clients to do anything I haven't done before. I know I got here, and that's why I know I guarantee they too will get there too.
Wow. Okay. So currently, after going through many things in life and transitioning careers, what is a fulfilling life to you today that may have been different, let's say 20 years from now? What does a fulfilled life look like to you today?
Being in the present moment, being here with you and with your audience and speaking to what you're asking me that I believe is part of a current conversation as opposed to my head thinking 10 steps ahead. What would sound good? What am I doing next week for dinner with my friends? You know, I've spent so much of my life looking to reach the end goal. And what I'm doing now is being present and enjoying the process and the journey before me, that experience.
Yes, I feel like a lot of high achieving or motivated people really have that problem that we always want a new goal, new
Yeah,
finish line, and we forget to be present and enjoy the moment. And we're like, well, I worked so hard and this is it. I got, this
right.
degree or this certificate or this meeting. And now what's the next thing? I've had to work on that myself too, to just be present and be like, okay, this is what we're doing now. We're enjoying even just the eating factor, to just eat in peace and not worry about also being on emails or anything else. Just if you're eating, only focus on eating.
Right? One thing at a time. Imagine that.
Yes. What has been your biggest challenge in life or in business, and what did you do to overcome it? Do you have any stories for us? And if you want, you can share the getting laid off story.
Well, the getting laid off story is a good one to start with. Because, I've been working for a company for 15 years. I was very high up on the senior leadership, and I didn't have any pink slips or warnings in all the years. And clearly people liked what I was doing there. So I was truly blindsided when it happened. Felt like it came out of left field. There was no pre-warning. And what I learned from that was even though I was humming along and doing my work, and even though people may not have been telling me things I was doing wrong or right, it would have been in my better interest if I asked more questions about that. Am I doing something right? How can I do my job better? What do I need from this organization? Or what do you believe you need in me to help achieve the company's goals? So that I felt maybe I had more of a stake in the game, not only to help build the company, but to build my own personal development. Because the truth is, I left that job. The company's
Yeah.
still there, but I can take all those skills with me and those dreams and those experiences and take it to the next place I go to. And that's what we have to remember is our identity is within us, not belonging to a company. Invest in yourself as well as the organization, and hopefully the organization is investing in you the same, whether you stay with them or they're helping you become better somewhere else. That's truly what
Yes, I feel like a good organization or a good leader should have been communicating that with you, doing the reviews with the development or areas of need. And they should have been doing that instead of you feeling like you had to ask, in my opinion, of course. But there's many organizations that are run in many different ways. So I guess if they're not asking you as an employee, or you have no idea how you're doing, you're just quietly minding your own business, maybe you should speak up as an employee. But I believe, like, if you are a leader listening, it is part of your job to touch base monthly, quarterly, with your employees to see how they're doing, where they can improve, what their plan is, what their goals are. As a leader, we need to learn how to get everybody on board. That was one of your stories, and I've had a hard time with that in running my business. Is I get all excited and passionate with what I want to do, but sometimes I'm too much doing what I need to do and I just assume everybody kind of figures out what they need to do or what my vision is. And I think that's a good reminder for leaders to stop and maybe work on those skills in order to have everybody as excited as you, instead of worrying about somebody being misplaced within the company. I think as a leader, we need to take responsibility, and having the conversation with you reminded me of that communication piece is so important to make sure everybody knows your vision of where you want to take your company.
And also equally with that is doing a check in with your employees to see what they want. I did an interesting experiment once where I asked my team members, what is it you love about what you do? And what are the things you don't like? And what are the things you wish you were doing? Now, those three categories opened a whole new discussion. And it wasn't that I could guarantee I would give them everything they hoped they could do. I learned a really important lesson because I understood where they were fitting within their daily job. Did they really enjoy being at the job? Was I giving them, or was there more opportunities and things I could give them that I wasn't seeing because I didn't have that conversation? So you don't wait for the exit interview to find out what somebody was miserable about or what they didn't do, and it's too late. You're doing it as you go along, and you'd be surprised how people feel heard, they feel acknowledged, and they know you're working for their best interests as well as the interests of the organization. Like we said, it's a two-way street. A company invests in you, you invest in the company. It could be a really good relationship, whether you stay with that organization or, again, whether you move on and remain good colleagues and allies in the end.
Awesome. Now, just shifting gear to speaking. Now, do you still speak, or are you mainly coaching and writing?
I do speak. I host a lot of workshops, and I do speak in front of organizations on these very topics we're talking about today. Absolutely.
I love that. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your speaking career? What does it take to be a speaker, and how do you get compensated on average for somebody who's seeking to be a speaker or wants to, is motivated to slowly go to that path?
Well, as we kind of been talking about today, is first connect with your stories. It's not what you, or something I've done is be sure I didn't set out to let people know or tell people what I think they wanted to know. Truly just share my journey and my experience and my growth as well as others, and be genuine in that space. Once you have an idea, because those are going to be unique to you, because everybody, a lot of people are talking about confidence, but what was my journey to confidence, right? Many people have been laid off, but what's my journey to being laid off? And what's my journey to building a business as yours? It's going to be different. So taking those stories and being honest about them. And at the same time, there are many bureaus out there that you can apply for and put your profile up there and start with doing local, free, perhaps speaking engagements. There are a lot of colleges that bring professionals in as experts to speak on their area of expertise, business schools, right? Sports, whatever your area of interest is, beauty, a beauty business. And then you could even work your way up from that once you build up that experience and that resume, start going after the paid gigs. And again, there are bureaus and ways to find all of those opportunities because there are conferences happening all over the world. They're in person, they're online, and there's many opportunities out there. Even Rotary clubs and local private groups that people have within their organizations. They're always looking for speakers to contribute their ideas.
Awesome. And I just noticed on your bio, you are also a recipient of the 2025 Woman Changing the World Award, which is very impressive. Congratulations on that. Can
Thank
you
you.
share a little bit about that?
Well, it was a wonderful experience and very surprising. I was nominated by a woman, Trish Chennai, who has an organization called Share Your Stories. And I've been part of her group for a long time. And she has a mentorship program. And people just literally share their stories and help support other professionals build up their business confidence. And she had nominated me for the category of, I believe, Business of the Year and Coach of the Year and Professional Services of the Year. So it came to my surprise, and even more so when I heard back from the organization that I was nominated. And it was a great experience to go to London and be there when the awards were presented and meet people that I've met or known for years online, to meet them in person. And what an experience that was, and an opportunity to just take our relationship to the next level and take that award and see how I can inspire.
Yes, that's so rewarding, just the confirmation you need that you are doing what you're meant to be doing.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And you get empowered by that too.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. Now, as my last question, I love asking my guests, what is your last words of wisdom, and where can people find you, your workshops, your books, and everything that you have to offer?
Tell people what your journey's been about. Don't hold back on sharing your story, because it's those little moments, those trials and tribulations, and the happy moments that people are going to really find intriguing. Like, instead of saying, "How was your day?" ask them, "What made your day great?" And then come back with a moment about somebody you met at a coffee shop or, walking. Seriously, that's one word of advice. Share those moments, because that's what's going to start a conversation, build confidence, and get you connected to people.
I love that.
Where you could find me is at remarkablespeaking.com. And on there, I have a resource page where there's lots of free downloads for speaking, sort of pro tips and ideas that I share on unique ways to help you get to this point of confidence. And through that, you can connect with me. There's a page on my website for connection where you connect with me on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. And I have a YouTube channel where Coach Shelly lives. And that's where a lot of my coaching ideas come out in full video.
I love that. Well, thank you again so much for sharing. It's been a pleasure talking to you and getting to know you. And thank you to our audience for always tuning in and being part of the conversation. Feel free to reach out to Shelly or myself about anything that we talked about. We'd love to discuss on all the online platforms. But again, thank you for your time, Shelly, and thank you to our listeners. Until next time, bye.
Thank you, Yegi. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow and engage with us on social media under the Yegi Project. And if you're interested in being a guest, email info@theyegiproject.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.